Genesis chapter 41. And it came to pass at the end of 2 full years that Pharaoh dreamed, and behold, he stood by the river. And behold, there came up out of the river 7 cows, beautiful in appearance, and fat of flesh. And they fed in a meadow, and behold, 7 other cows came up after them out of the river, evil in appearance, and lean of flesh. And they stood by the other cows upon the brink of the river, and the evil-appearing and lean-fleshed cows ate up the 7 beautiful-appearing and fat cows. And so Pharaoh awoke. And he slept and dreamed the second time, and behold, 7 ears of corn came up on one stalk, fat and good. And behold, 7 thin ears, and blasted with the east wind, sprang up after them. And the 7 thin ears devoured the 7 fat and full ears. And Pharaoh awoke, and behold, it was a dream. And it came to pass in the morning that his spirit was troubled, and he sent and called for all the magicians of Egypt, and all the wise men of it. And Pharaoh told them his dream, but there was none who could interpret them to Pharaoh. Then the chief butler spoke to Pharaoh, saying, I remember my fault this day. Pharaoh was angry with his servants, and put me under guard in the captain of the guard's house, me and the chief baker. And we dreamed a dream one night. He and I, we dreamed each man according to the interpretation of his dream. And there was there amongst us a young man, a Hebrew, a servant to the captain of the guard. And we told him, and he interpreted our dreams to us. He interpreted to each man according to his dream, and he has interpreted to us, so it was. He restored me to my office, and he hanged him. Then Pharaoh sent and called Joseph, and they brought him out of the dungeon. And he shaved and changed his clothing, and came in unto Pharaoh. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, I have dreamed a dream, and there is none that can interpret it. And I have heard it said of you that you can understand a dream to interpret it. And Joseph answered Pharaoh, saying, It is not in me. God shall give Pharaoh an answer of peace. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, In my dream, behold, I stood upon the bank of the river, and behold, there came up out of the river 7 cows, beautiful in appearance and fat of flesh. And they fed in a meadow. And behold, 7 other cows came up after them, poor and evil of appearance, and lean of flesh, such as I never saw in all the land of Egypt, for badness. And the lean and evil-appearing cows did eat up the first 7 fat cows. And when they had eaten them up, it could not be known that they had eaten them, but they were still evil of appearance, as at the beginning. And so I awoke. And I saw in my dream, and behold, 7 ears came up in one stalk, full and good. And behold, 7 ears withered, thin, blasted with the east wind, sprang up after them. And the thin ears devoured the 7 good ears. And I told this to the magicians, but there was none that could open it to me. And Joseph said to Pharaoh, The dream of Pharaoh is one. God has shown Pharaoh what he is about to do. The 7 good cows are 7 years, and the 7 good ears are 7 years. The dream is one. And the 7 thin and evil-appearing cows that came up after them are 7 years. And the 7 empty ears blasted with the east wind shall be 7 years of famine. This is a thing which God has spoken to Pharaoh, what God is about to do. He shows to Pharaoh, Behold, there comes 7 years of great plenty throughout all the land of Egypt, and there shall arise after them 7 years of famine. And all the plenty shall be forgotten in the land of Egypt, and the famine shall consume the land. And the plenty shall not be known in the land because of the famine following, for it shall be very grievous. And since the dream was doubled to Pharaoh twice, it is because the thing is established by God, and God will shortly bring it to pass. Now therefore let Pharaoh look for a man who is discreet and wise, and set him over the land of Egypt. Let Pharaoh do this, and let him appoint officers over the land, and take up the 5th part of the land of Egypt in the 7 plenteous years. And let them gather all the food of those good years that come, and lay up grain under the hand of Pharaoh, and let them keep food in the cities. That food shall be for a store to the land against the 7 years of famine, which shall be in the land of Egypt, so that the land does not perish through the famine. And the thing was good in the eyes of Pharaoh and in the eyes of all his servants. And Pharaoh said to his servants, Can we find anyone like this, a man in whom the Spirit of God is? And Pharaoh said to Joseph, Since God has showed you all this, no man is as discreet and wise as you are. You shall be over my house, and all my people shall be ruled according to your word. Only in the throne will I be greater than you are. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, See, I have set you over all the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh took off his ring from his hand and put it upon Joseph's hand. And he dressed him in clothing of fine linen, and put a gold chain around his neck. And he made him to ride in the second chariot which he had, and they cried before him, Bow the knee. And he made him ruler over all the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, I am Pharaoh, and without you shall no man lift up his hand or foot in all the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh called Joseph's name Zaphnath-Paaneah, and he gave him for his wife Asenath, the daughter of Potipharah, priest of On. And Joseph went out over all the land of Egypt. And Joseph was 30 years old when he stood before Pharaoh, king of Egypt. And Joseph went out from the presence of Pharaoh and went throughout all the land of Egypt. And in the 7 years of plenty the earth brought forth by handfuls. And he gathered up all the food of the 7 years which were in the land of Egypt, and laid up food in the cities. He laid up the food of the field which was round about every city in the same city. And Joseph gathered grain like the sand of the sea, very much, until he quit numbering it, for it was without number. And 2 sons were born unto Joseph before the years of famine came, whom Asenath, the daughter of Potipharah, prince of On, bore him. And Joseph called the name of the first son Manasseh, for he says, God has made me forget all my toil and all my father's house. And the name of the second he called Ephraim, for he said, God has caused me to be fruitful in the land of my affliction. And the 7 years of plenty that was in the land of Egypt were ended, and the 7 years of famine began to come, according as Joseph had said. And the famine was in all the land, but in all the land of Egypt there was bread. When all the land of Egypt was famished, the people cried to Pharaoh for bread, and Pharaoh said to all the Egyptians, Go to Joseph, and what he says to you do. And the famine was over all the face of the earth. And Joseph opened all the storehouses and sold to the Egyptians. And the famine became sore in the land of Egypt. And all countries came into Egypt to Joseph, because the famine was so sore in all the land.